We've all been anxiously awaiting that big move. For weeks, the rumors and whispers were swirling and everyone expected Phoenix to make a splash that would reshape their season. And then, this happens. The Phoenix Suns would trade Josh Okogie and 3 second-round picks to the Charlotte Hornets for, wait for it, Nick Richards and a second-round pick.
Oh my God! Okay, it's happening. Everybody stay calm.
What's the
Everybody
procedure,
stay
everyone?
calm.
What's the procedure?
Stay calm.
Wait.
Everybody just calm down.
So this trade might have not been the blockbuster move that some were hoping for. But don't be deceived, because this trade could still have a significant impact on the Suns' season, whether that impact be positive or negative. In fact, this trade could be a sign of what's to come next in this chaotic saga. But before we dive deeper, do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell if you haven't already. Trust me, you're going to want to be here when we discuss whatever wild move that Matt Ishbia pulls off next. Now, for a word from today's sponsor. So for today's pick on Underdog, I'm taking Cade Cunningham going over 41.5 points, rebounds, and assists. I've got Cade in fantasy, and let me tell you guys that this guy has been going crazy. We're definitely doing a video on him and the Pistons soon. Also, I'll take Jalen Green going over 23.5 points. Jalen Green, who I also have in fantasy, has unironically been going crazy too. And we have to do a video on him and the Rockets soon also. I'm trying to tell you guys, we have some really fun and unique content coming to the channel. So if you haven't signed up for Underdog yet, now is the perfect time. Use my code COOP to score up to $1,000 in bonus cash and a free pick to get started. It's also a great way to support the channel. Thank you, Underdog, for the sponsor. Phoenix has been in a bit of turmoil lately, and that's not exactly surprising. Just last week, the Suns made the call to move Jusuf Nurkic and Bradley Beal to the bench, and neither player would be given a heads up that a move like this would be happening. It was one of those moves that really seemed to come out of nowhere. Even with all of the chaos going on in Phoenix, this move still managed to catch many of us off guard.
Yeah, we went with Mason and Oso again. They've been good for us, so we'll just continue to try and put together our best combinations, to figure out how to get through a game.
Just a quick follow. Nurkic said after the last game that you hadn't spoken to him about making this call, making this decision. What's the conversation been like with him since then, as far as him not playing?
Yeah, no, he's a pro, so, he's got to be ready. Everybody's earning their minutes. Everybody's earning their opportunities, so, we're going to need everybody as we go through the season.
It's safe to say that Coach Bud definitely went about these benchings in a nasty way. The way that he went about them basically felt like a thanks for nothing for both Bradley Beal and Jusuf Nurkic. But as I discussed in my last Suns video, it seemed like this ordeal might have just been part of a larger plan for the Suns. Shortly after these benchings, a rumor would surface suggesting that one of the reasons that Beal was benched was to get him frustrated enough to consider waiving his pesky no-trade clause. Beal would handle being benched with total professionalism, coming in off of the bench and delivering strong performances when called upon. Nurkic, on the other hand, would take a similar mature approach, acknowledging that at the end of the day, it is a business and sometimes these things happen. But instead of stepping up with a big performance off of the bench, he would find himself completely removed from the rotation. And now with Nick Richards coming to town, his outlook looks even more bleak. I was honestly surprised that Nurkic wasn't moved in this deal, but apparently the Hornets were seeking all of the Suns' remaining assets just to take on Jusuf Nurkic. You know that things are going bad when even the Charlotte Hornets are looking at you like food in negotiations. So according to Shams, this season Nick Richards has averaged 11.3 points, 10.2 rebounds, and 1.7 blocks in 9 starts. On top of that, his 65% shooting from the field over the past 4 seasons ranks as the 5th best in the NBA. Those numbers aren't too bad. They're actually pretty good. With the Suns dealing with one of the weakest center rotations in the league, simply adding an NBA level talent to the position immediately addresses a major need. Unfortunately, I'm not even exaggerating. Just recently, the Suns watched Onyeka Okongwu look like prime Shaq putting up a monster 22-point, 21 rebound game. I looked it up, and this would actually be the first 20+ point, 20+ rebound game of his career. Now, Onyeka is a talented player and should absolutely be starting somewhere, but against the Suns, it felt like he had them completely powerless, which is inexcusable. Don't get me started on what Mark Williams did to them the game before that.
Here he's Ball working off the screen, drives down the lane, leads it inside, and Williams.
Ironically, in this same game, Nick Richards put up just 4 points and 5 rebounds in 18 minutes off of the bench. This would be nowhere near the 15 points and 12 rebounds that he delivered off of the bench against the Suns just 5 days earlier. As I said, the Suns desperately needed more talent at the center position, and they got that, for the price of giving up one of their best perimeter defenders who was out of the rotation, and some second-round picks. Personally, I thought that they might go for more of a defensive specialist, already having Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, and Bradley Beal on their team, but hey, maybe this was the best that they could do.
Here's Cody now, leading the way with 11. Up top to Nick Richards. That was impressive vision from Cody Martin.
I think that they could have definitely done better, but they definitely could have done worse too. That being said, it's hard to be too upset when you're saving $20 million on that hefty tax bill. I can already tell that this is a move that Ishbia loved. You know, I've been kind of hard on Ishbia, but shout out to the guy for at least trying to make moves and make his team better. For all we know, Nick Richards could end up being a beast for the Suns. I own a disgusting amount of Mark Williams stock, so I'm really familiar with Nick Richards' game. Nick Richards is a talented athlete with a strong rebounding game, and he's proven that he can put up solid numbers, averaging a double-double in his starts this season. Offensively, he can produce, but his defense, that can leave a lot to be desired sometimes. He's one of those guys where his energy can fluctuate from possession to possession. B-Ball Index compared him to other rotation, mobile, and anchor bigs, and this is how he stacked up on defense. C+ for rim protection, a D for post defense, and a D+ for screener mobile defense. The wording there is a little funky, but nevertheless the grades are pretty straightforward. To be fair, whatever's going on in Charlotte right now is a bit of a mess, and honestly, I'd imagine that most of their players would grade out very poorly defensively. For Nick, hopefully him joining a better team and fitting into a new system with more opportunity eventually helps to elevate his game. But even if it doesn't, he's still an upgrade who can have some big performances and contribute to this team. The Suns are hoping that he'll step into that starting role sooner rather than later, so he'll definitely have the chance to prove himself in Phoenix. I just picked him up in my fantasy league, so I'm really hoping that he's a consistent monster for the Suns. While we'll see how consistent that Nick will be, one thing is for sure: this trade makes moving Bradley Beal even tougher. The Suns were already light on assets, and now they've got even fewer to work with, which makes finding a deal that would entice other teams to take on Beal that much harder. But don't count out Ishbia when it comes to making a bold move. I'm convinced that this guy would trade the shoes off of his own feet if it meant shaking things up and making things happen. I don't know if you guys have seen the latest news when it comes to the Jimmy Butler stuff, but things have gotten even uglier. I'm talking about both sides are leaking news that we may have never known about otherwise. Just a few days ago, it was reported that Jimmy Butler had multiple instances of skipping Miami's morning shoot-arounds and requested to have private flights instead of traveling on the Heat's charter plane. Come to find out that he was using these private flights to mainly visit his father, who had an illness before he passed away. Also come to find out that the Miami Heat were straight up playing with this man's money in the name of an accounting error. Like, yeah, right. Let's be serious here. Jimmy Butler was the only player on the Heat that this happened to. That seems pretty sketchy to me. And now, the Miami Heat want to change the designation of his suspension from conduct detrimental to the team to refusing to provide services so that his fine would double. I know a mud throwing contest when I see one, and this is a good old-fashioned mud throwing contest. When that initial report dropped, which said that Jimmy wanted to play for any team other than the Heat, I laughed at that notion and said, be careful what you wish for, Jimmy. But now, man, I completely get it. Jimmy and the Heat need to be separated at all costs. We talked about a toxic relationship in my last video, but man, what can we even call this? Because at this point, things are beyond toxic. I don't know, guys. Let me know what you think of everything down in the comments below. Anyways, there's some more going on in the basketball world right now that I need to be covering, so clicking the video on the screen and using code COOP for Underdog are both great ways to support this channel. I'm GetLikeCoop, bringing you guys the scoop until our next upload.